Welcome here. Hello, everyone. I'm Denise O'Malley. I'm the founder of You Define Wellness. And every month we put on this Conversations in the Workplace featuring Lorie Reichel-Howe, who is, her company name is Conversations in the Workplace. And our goal and our intention is to support those in the human resources field with education, communication issues and challenges. We always open it up at the end for questions and answers. You're welcome to stay and ask any questions that you have on any topic, not just what we're talking about today. And we invite you to engage with us and collaborate by filling in or putting your responses in the chat box when you have it. A little bit about You Define Wellness. We are a network of independent health and wellness professionals from around the world. And we create programs for education and access to services on how to live a happy, healthy, and thriving life. We do have employee benefit programs. We have a variety of other things that we can do as well. We invite you to go to our website, and I'll put that in the chat box because we have a lot of resources there. And just as many people use Lorie's recordings for training meetings with their staff, we have a library on our website with about 200 topics in it on health and well-being, and we invite you to use those in your employee communications for your wellness when you're wanting to communicate. We have the information available to you. It is free of charge to access. And we do know there are some very major corporations who do use and access our resource library as part of their communications on well-being strategy with their employees. And with that being said, you're here not to listen to Denise, you're here to listen to Lorie Reichel-Howe. So I am going to turn it over to you, to Lorie. Lorie, if you have not heard of her in the past, she is a renowned speaker in the field of human resources. She was just telling me before we opened up the room and let everybody in some of her speaking engagements that she has coming up. And she is sought after for her expertise. And we are going to be starting a series today. And this one is called Speaking While Female, Defeating Gender Bias. And so I'm looking forward to a wonderful conversation and learning an awful lot. And with that being said, here's Lorie Reichel-Howe.
Thank you, Denise. Let me pull everything up. Let me get us in presenter view. And let me get to the very beginning. Give me a thumbs up okay, yay. Great. Okay, so I can see my screen. I'm going to minimize pictures there. And let's launch in to Speaking While Female, Defeating Gender Bias. And this webinar answers the question, how can women speak passionately, directly, assertively, and with that honest integrity without experiencing social backlash? In essence, without experience and with overcoming stereotype. Particularly female stereotype. So as we dress differently for different occasions, when women implement different communication strategies for different situations, they greatly diminish gender bias. That bias that results in our being dismissed, in unfair judgments, and that ultimately hinders our success. And while numerous thousands of stereotypes exist in our world, I don't want to say that only one exists. That is not the case. Today, though, I want to filter in, and our focus will be specifically on the gender bias that women face and the unique challenges it presents to women, especially when women speak up directly in the workplace. So as a leadership communication coach, I support women in advancing their careers. And this is one hindrance that women are repeatedly having to deal with and seek to overcome. So that's why I am doing specifically narrowing down to this topic. So two realities that are just assumptions, are just realities that I am kicking off and acknowledging as we kick off this webinar. Number one, gender stereotypes exist. And we live in a world where women had to even fight to obtain the vote, not only women, others. And in order to get the vote, they had to have men voted into being. So it's just a reality. And women have the power to recognize that it exists and to purposefully counter it at work. And I want you to engage with me today, share some examples of how behaviors may be interpreted differently based upon gender. So I'm going to ask you to go to your chat box and recognizing that behaviors are interpreted differently. When a male does something, how that's interpreted versus when a female does similar, same behavior, how the assumptions about that person's character are completely different. So let's start with a man who speaks directly, passionately, can be considered assertive. How might a woman be interpreted? I would love to hear your responses, and I'm opening up my chat box right now. Okay, yeah, thank you. I've got two responses there, but put together, aggressive or that B word. Yeah, here we go, aggressive. Somebody said bossy. I love the way Lena and Sheryl Sandberg, or, well, she said it, but also Michelle Obama. I realized I'm not bossy. I'm a female who has something important to say. So how, anyway, just that contrast there. So we've heard that's one of the most common, that misperception, overcoming that gender bias. What about when a man speaking passionately, he's persuasive? Tell me, how might a woman be interpreted with that same behavior? Opening up my chat box again. Okay, here we go. Nagging, manipulative. Okay, oh, great one, April. Difficult. Okay, how about pushy? I've heard things like, she just won't let go, or give it a rest, lady. Okay, here's another one. Stay at your chat box. And he's a leader. How might a woman's behavior be interpreted? What is called leader for a man? Tell me, what might a female face? Okay, thanks, Lisa. Pushy, again, bossy. Mine would be, she's always trying to take over and take control. And let's see, next one here. A man is considered, he's direct, he's to the point. Tell me, how might a female be interpreted? We'll give you a last one. Oh, okay, blunt. Thanks, Denise.
Blunt.
Oh, crass. Oh, arrogant. How about rude? Or here's one, bulldozer. He's direct, but see, she's a bulldozer. So see how we have those double standards. Okay, great answers. And it's, I love particularly to ask females because they've experienced many of these. They're double standards. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge the injustice that as women, we even need to develop strategies to overcome these biases that impact us. But as unfair as it is, they do exist. And it's likely you have faced them and that you will face them again. So women can be burdened with the cultural stereotype that typecasts women as nurturing and caring. And when they speak forcefully or boldly, well, then because of these cultural norms, they have this punishing backlash and unfair judgments of their character because people's perceptions and interpretations are different for what a man would do versus what a woman would do. So, like it or not, for women, demonstrating behaviors that can be interpreted as forceful or assertive is risky. That's because women can be seen as angry versus as strong. So while we work to make workplaces more equitable, I want to provide you with 3 communication tools that will help you respond to defeat gender bias when it occurs at work. So instead of just passively accepting the gender skewed stereotypes, women can simply insert a few words or phrases before verbalizing what they want to say. And this will really do a countering of these stereotypes. So I will go ahead and identify 3, just verbally list them. And then today we will focus on the first one. And then I'm going to give you some practice time or some discussion time, Q&A. And then next month, we are going to take on the next 2. So let me say that there are workplaces that are free of these types of stereotypes. So those places do exist, but there are also places where they exist. And if you find yourself in majority places, they exist. So that's why today we're working on this. I'm not saying that this hasn't been overcome by some organization, but I'm saying those are few and far between. So let's look at the 3 communication frames that we'll be looking at within the next, this month and next month. And when the 3 communication frames, the first one is what? In essence, what you are going to say. Before you do that, put in a what phrase. Next frame would make sure to say why you are speaking up, then make your point. And the last one would be identify the risk you are taking. And in essence, what that is it's saying, okay, I think I'm going to be, it's very possible that people are going to interpret me as aggressive or pushy. And so what you will do is just say that. I know I am planning to speak directly and passionately because I believe deeply about this. So although there might be a risk of having this misinterpreted, it's important to me to be heard, so I'm going to speak. So just by doing those 3 frames, you can counter that stereotype. So let's move to today's focus, which is inserting the what frame. And by the what frame, here's what I mean. It's explaining your intention before you give your content, before sharing your idea or what it is you want to say. And in doing that, what you're doing with the what frame, you're making it clear that you are intentional as well as strategic. What this does, it's really disarming that impulsive, emotional, or abrasive misperception. You're saying, I put some time into developing my thoughts, and here they are. So giving that real intentionality. Now, benefits, here's what it does. It explains your actions. And in explaining your actions, you dramatically reduce negative judgment. You create and demonstrate intentionality. They can see, no, this isn't knee-jerk. This person has thought about this, and their speaking follows their thinking. So you're not also then considered emotional. You are instead intentional, and your intentions are being expressed with conviction. And it sets the stage, therefore minimizing the surprise, the faulty exceptions, and blindsiding people. So let me now give you an example. I don't want to tell, I want to show. I want to show you, not just tell you. So in the following example of the what frame, listen, I'm going to show you Stephanie, who is implementing the what frame to overcome the judgments that her words could come across as abrasive, blunt, impulsive. She doesn't want to be interpreted as the B word. Here we go. I am going to express my opinion on the proposal, on the proposed merger very directly, and I'll be as specific as possible. Now, for increased impact, let me just add a few more words to demonstrate how Sophie overcomes any judgment of her being considered ignorant on the topic. Having spent time researching merger acquisitions, I'm going to express my opinion on the proposed merger very directly. I'll be as specific as possible. So now, girlfriends, what I'd love you to do is go to your chat box and tell me, thinking about how she has just responded, such as, I'm going to express my opinion on the proposed merger very quickly or directly. I'll be as specific as possible. And this other one, how does she come across to you? How does she come across to you? And how is she reducing negative judgments? Give me some thoughts on what you have just, your observations about those two what phrases that she used. So I'd love to hear from you. And I am going to open up my chat box. First of all, start. How would you interpret her? How do you think her actions, having used that what phrase, how do you think she'll be interpreted? Character. And Denise, feel free while people are putting their thoughts together, we can certainly engage verbally.
Yeah. Part of it is, I think it depending on the circumstance, I think that it's good that she reminds them of her background in mergers and acquisitions, but in some ways it comes across a little condescending to me.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm wondering how she might do that. Um, if she were to phrase that as, while this is not my area of expertise, some of the experience I have in this area has caused me to think about the impact of a merger.
I do like that.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
good response in the chat box.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Denise, because see, sometimes it's even how we just finagle and tweak, and it all depends too on the context, what you don't want to come across arrogant, but you want to have an intellectual humility. So okay, Kathleen, thank you. Here's her response. By saying she'll be specific, it makes it sound like a very considered response versus an emotional response. Okay, thanks, Kathleen. So here, what she's saying is it's become very intentional. So this is not a woman that would be considered a knee-jerk or emotional. Okay, yeah, I'm going to express my opinion on the proposed merger very directly, and I'll be as specific as possible. So certainly also not trying to be over wordy, concise. That is always one thing that I know that is because I'm verbal. Being concise, though, is considered very helpful for with it developing a business persona. Okay, with that, let me give a practice. And so grab, well, you don't have to grab paper and pencil. I'll let you use the chat box to compose your thoughts. What I would like everyone to do, and this is the one activity today, and then we'll move to a Q&A. What I would like to do is say, you are Sophie, and you are in a meeting, and the topic is, the proposal is to cut the marketing budget by 25%. And you are opposed to this idea. You have some strong concerns, and you are afraid of, you see the marketing very interconnected with the bringing in of clients and bringing in a business. So what I want you to do is compose a what frame we'll just compose the what frame, and demonstrating that you are intentional, demonstrating your thinking and feeling. So you don't have to go into giving points, but how would you open up that conversation with what you're going to say with a what frame? So you do want to be direct, you do want to boldly speak up. And so let me give you a few minutes, your plan, compose a what frame, and I want you to diffuse interpretations of being emotional or knee-jerk responsiveness. So I'll give you a minute and let you.
You know, Lorie, while we're waiting for some answers here, let me just kind of chime in on this one, because I'm having a little bit of a difficult time with this. And I'm having to actually think back earlier in my career, when I was typically the only woman in the room, and typically in my 20s or 30s, and in a position of authority. And so I had to learn a lot of different ways to reframe things and speak my mind because I was just this, hey, this little girl in the room type of a thing, right?
Mhm.
Pat me on the head and send me on my way. But as I've moved in my career and I've earned the respect when I speak up in a room, I personally, at this point in my career, could not phrase something to say, to use words to convey that I'm not going to be emotional.
Mhm.
So, I think part of it, it feels like it, it really depends on where you are in your career or where you fit into the organization. Um,
Oh,
so,
sure.
so I'm having a hard time, doing your task here that you've given to us, because I would never personally ever use words to say, I want to be very direct and
Mm, mhm.
coming from a position of objectivity versus a position of emotions.
Got
So
it. Okay,
I don't know
okay.
if that helps you any.
Yeah, it does. Well, and I think um, help me is there, I'm thinking that probably the way you spoke up was probably not considered emotional.
Mhm.
Is that a fair?
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
I learned very early in my career to keep emotions out of it so that I
okay,
wasn't
okay.
stereotypical.
Okay, so it wasn't something that you had to, you were not interpreted emotional. So,
Right.
so yeah, so you wouldn't have to do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to do that. And so I think it is certainly going to be much more applicable
Mhm.
to those who come across as more emotional.
I would,
And
yeah, I would typically phrase something like, I'd really like to understand your point of view and where you're coming from for these numbers so that we can find some alignment together,
Mhm,
as and more a matter of phrasing it as, I would really like to understand your perspective and your point.
mhm. Okay, right. But what you're doing, you're seeking to understand.
Mhm.
How would you, the question is, how would you voice that you had different thoughts? So it would be more of a, um, because here, let me give you an
Mhm.
example. And so asking questions is, you are first starting with understanding their
Mhm.
thinking. And that, so that would be how you would start and move into before you began to give your position. And what I was wanting people to do is to give your position. And if you
Yeah.
were concerned about it, say, um, I, I care about the company and us making the best decision, and realize that that can involve questioning decisions to determine their outcome. I'm concerned that cutting the marketing budget by 25% will also be, is also linked to, and will have the outcome of cutting the clients that we are able to bring in. And
Right.
that's going to affect our, when that's going to negatively affect our income.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
I think
Lisa
that,
has, just so you know, Lisa has an excellent thing that she came up with in the chat box.
oh, yes, she did. Yes, she did. At least I'm going to read it out loud. um, though I understand the consideration to decrease the marketing budget by 25%. Here she's made a connection with them. It's not critical. I value the collaborative opportunity to express my experience and knowledge of this topic. I have some concerns and would like to review them with you. Talk diplomacy just flowed from there. I don't know if anyone can go to the, I just hit, Lisa, I just hit my save button. One thing too, that what Lisa has done, which we'll be talking about next time, is she's using the Y frame. And when you read her thoughts on, I value the collaborative opportunity that were collaborative and to express my experience and knowledge. So she's really, in that, she's referring to values and the culture that they are wanting to create. So, and then what is, I have some concerns, I would like to review them with you. So it's not an attack, but what it is allowing her to give a perspective that's being heard and sharing of her thoughts. Beautifully done, Lisa. Okay. Denise and Lisa, thank you. The verbal, I think just the communication that we're having now, plus just seeing Lisa's as an example, is a great way to, I mean, all of this is where I think the value of the webinar is really seen. So with that, let's go ahead and Denise, let's move it into more Q&A. If we get any more examples, we'll certainly read those. But can we go ahead and let people begin to ask questions? I'd love to hear some experiences that people have had, how they've responded. I'd love to hear some people sharing ideas of how to respond and move this into just a sharing and discussion as well as Q&A. So how can we, I don't know if that is, I'll let you give directions to Denise as far as whether we want to verbally speak or keep the chat box open.
Well, I think we could do a little bit of both. What I'd like to do at this point in time, because we've done this on previous ones, is go ahead and end the recording. And for those who are watching this as a recording, we will have Lorie's contact information up at the end of it. But I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and end this recording so that those who are in the room with us live can ask questions in pure confidentiality in case there's any fear that it might be on the recording. So is that okay with you, Lorie?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.